Hello and welcome back to Karma Stories. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have some stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Before we start today, if you happen to be listening or watching on Spotify, if you could take a moment and give us a 5-star review, it would really help us out in the Spotify algorithm. With that being said though, on to the stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Falcon GK81. I can't transfer to another class? Okay, band director, I'll stay in your band. I grew up as an army brat, so I did a lot of moving in my childhood. I had been at my current school for 4 years, starting in 8th grade. Up until then, it was the longest I'd ever been in one place. I would be moving across an ocean for my senior year of high school. I was going to miss the friends I'd made, but as an army brat, this wasn't anything new. Frankly, I was looking forward to a change of scenery. I was a member of the high school band. Through my sophomore year, we had a wonderful band director who was the kind of teacher everyone dreams of. Helpful, friendly, supportive, encouraging, and a little bit of a hard butt when needed. However, she left us, and her replacement was nothing short of horrible. He was mean, rude, short-tempered, and authoritarian. One spring day, nearing the end of my junior year, I needed to go to a dental appointment to fix a cavity. Given that we were about to move thousands of miles away, we just took the first appointment we could get, and that happened to be an early afternoon that would require me to miss a single day of band class. So I go to the band director, inform him that I'm going to miss class this afternoon for a dental appointment. Then I check out of school, go to the dentist, get my tooth filled, go home, and carry on with the rest of my life because this is a regular, routine, normal, and not at all unusual event that is hardly worth even noticing, let alone causing drama, right? Of course not. I come to school the following day and a bunch of my bandmates come up to me at morning break. Hey OP, did you hear about Mr. B yesterday? They all inquire. No, what happened? I reply. I get a story about how Mr. B decides to take the opportunity of my absence to lecture the entire band about how dedication is so important. Everyone really needs to be a team player. We don't need selfish members in this band who schedule appointments during band class and rehearsals. I mean, he really lays into it. Apparently, arms waving, voice rising, he works himself into a full tirade against selfish band members who don't show up to class for trifling things like medical appointments. While the band was somewhat large, probably 80 students, everyone in the room knew exactly who he was referring to, as I'm conspicuously not in my chair that day. Hence the cluster of bandmates asking me if I'd heard about this. So here's the thing. As I mentioned earlier, I'm an army brat through and through. To this day, I still say yes sir or no ma'am when talking to my elders and superiors. I know rules and order, and I know my part in the system. I was not rebellious. I had a 3.9 GPA, good manners, and never put a toe out of line. But I also have a very large sense of justice, and this was BS. So I marched myself right to the band director and said, Mr. B, I hear you gave a good lecture about not needing people who aren't dedicated in the band, and how scheduling appointments during band class is not showing dedication. So, effective immediately, I am no longer in your band. I'll find another class to finish out the year. You should have seen the veins on his forehead. I swear, the man nearly stroked out. I've never seen anyone angrier. He starts to yell at me, but this isn't my class time. I don't have to be there. So I turn around to walk out. The man literally moves to block my way, yelling about how I decide if you're in here or not. You can't leave this class without my permission. I'm the one in charge here. We'll see about that. I just walk around him and go about my day. Since this is between class free time, I don't have to stand there and discuss it with him. I go to Coach N, another one of those awesome teachers everyone loves, and tell him about my situation. Coach N happens to teach an art history class the same period as the band class. I asked Coach N if he wouldn't mind if I finished out the year in his class. He did encourage me to try and work it out if I could, but I made it pretty clear to him that I didn't respect Mr. B. I wasn't going to be treated like that, and this was just the last straw in a year-long display of his petty, mean, authoritarian nonsense. Since Coach N and I got along great, he gladly agrees to let me join his art class. So I go on down to the principal's office and tell the principal that I'm not going to finish out the year in band, but that Coach N is willing to let me finish the year in his class. The principal tells me, "We're gonna have to discuss that with Mr. B and your parents. I'll set up a meeting." Great, as soon as possible, please. So last period of the day comes and I go to Coach N's class. About 5 minutes into some slideshow about Coach N's trip to Rome last year, and I'm fetched out of the class and told that I haven't been allowed to switch yet, and I must go to my band class. Cue the malicious compliance. "I can't leave without your permission, Mr. B. Okay, I'll stay in your band." Now, what older, more vindictive me thinks I should have done was just play the most ridiculous, off-note, out-of-tempo nonsense all class long. That would have been hilarious, but that's not what I did. Like I said, I was a rule follower. Playing wrong or loudly never crossed my mind. Instead, what I did was go into band class, take my front row seat, I was first chair oboe, and sit with my hands folded in my lap for the entire 90 minutes. Staring at Mr. B, I don't take out my instrument, warm up, pull out sheet music, or interact with anyone the entire time. I just sit there, passive-aggressively displaying that while you can make me stay in your class, you can't make me play. You'd think he'd get the hint and just relent, but that's not Mr. B's style. Instead, for 2 days while they set up the meeting with my mom, I have to sit in that class and openly defy him. But he's got a plan. He's going to threaten my grades and try to coerce my mom to make me support him. Thankfully, I've prepped mom, and she's no fan of Mr. B, so that's gonna go nowhere. So we finally go to the meeting, and when both sides have had their say, Mr. B smugly says, "If I don't let you out of my class, you have to stay. You'll get a failing grade." The principal takes his side, and also tries to cajole me into staying, trying to lean on the threat to my grades. OP's mom, "OP has such great grades, you wouldn't want those ruined now, would you?" Mom, like a boss, basically says, "I think OP is right. He doesn't want to stay in the class. Let's just find an alternative." Then I said to the principal, "You can make me stay if that's what you want to do." Then I turned to Mr. B and said, "I have a 3.9 GPA. I think I can afford one bad grade for 1/4 in an art credit. I don't think that's going to ruin my future. So again, you can make me stay, and you can give me a bad grade, but you can't make me play." Every day, in front of every band member of that band, I will openly defy you. Do you really want that for the rest of the school year? I still remember the look of defeat on his face. It was glorious. Coach N's class for the rest of the year was great fun. I learned a lot about art history and appreciation, which was something I hadn't really been exposed to before. Then I set off halfway across the world for an international high school adventure my senior year. In a way, I couldn't actually believe I pulled it off. I think it's the day I realized that I wasn't so different from adults. You could maybe even argue that it was when I became an adult. So I guess I could thank Mr. B for that, but I won't. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Glassfern. It says, "Some band teachers have such a huge ego. I had a bad one too, who replaced a stellar one." OP responded and said, "It is rather remarkable how big his ego was. It was like, bro, you've been here as assistant director for like 2 years. Calm down." Another commenter called Coder Joe 1 said, "Petty tyrants are typically the most insecure. He probably didn't recognize a student with a backbone." OP responded and said, "Honestly, I tend to think of myself as pretty meek. He probably rightly assumed he could bully me. The thing is, as I said in the post, I have a very strong sense of justice. The only thing I hate more than anything is a bully." Is it just me, or are most band teachers like this? They forget that their purpose is to foster joy in the kids and a love for music, but they just focus on the fact that they are the people in charge and you should do everything they say. Yeah. I also want to mention really quickly that I found it really interesting in this story that the coach was teaching an art history class. That's not the crossover that I expected. This story comes to us from Over Easy Alley. "Boss looked like a fool, courtesy of me." I worked as a recruiter for a temp agency when I was young and fresh out of college. The manager of the agency was a total micromanager and wanted a say in absolutely everything. She micromanaged everyone so badly that she wanted to proofread any emails that any staff member was sending externally. She also wanted to be CC'd on every single outgoing external email. One day, one of my coworkers got a response back from an employer who gave some positive feedback about the email she wrote. Our manager made sure to reply all and take credit for the email and explained she oversees all outgoing emails. A few days later, in a staff meeting, she made a point of saying she should get credit for any feedback the agency receives since she proofreads everything. The thing is, this manager was not well-spoken or smart, and not even a particularly good writer. I regularly spotted issues with her sentence structure and use of commas, but just didn't say anything. One day, she's proofreading one of my emails that would be going externally to an employer who pumped a lot of money into our agency. I was stating in the email that I thought so-and-so was a great fit for their vacant position based on so-and-so's past experience. This manager comes to my desk and tells me the email looks good, except it should read past experience, PASSED. I told her that was incorrect, and she told me I was wrong, and she knows the difference between the two words. I wasn't in the mood to argue, so I wrote it as past, PASSED, experience, and CC'd Miss Manager on the email. The employer writes me back and says, as an employer who hires people to work on printed literature, they wanted to correct me and let me know it's actually past, PAST, experience. That's where malicious compliance kicked in. I hit reply all and thanked them for the feedback and explained my manager values all feedback, and since she proofreads all outgoing emails, she was the one who insisted on writing PASSED experience. The next day, she announced she no longer wanted to proofread outgoing external emails and didn't want to be CC'd on them any further. Malicious Compliance put that witch in her place. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called InitialShop8863. It says, "Congratulations, OP. You also managed to do something that reminds her every time she sees the word past or past for the rest of her life. Exactly how arrogant and inept she is. I hope she's come to terms with the humiliation, but I doubt it." Calling out a manager on their BS can be absolutely fun, but calling out a manager to somebody else who then gets back to that manager, that's even better. In this case, they let the client of their temp agency see just how inept that manager was, and it sounds to me like the manager put their tail between their legs at the end of the story and just walked away. This story comes to us from Bing Bong, I Am Wrong. If a single radio's battery dies, shut it all down. This happened over 5 years ago, and it still ticks me off whenever I think about it. I was 17 working at a big theme park and had been working there for the better part of the year. I had quickly picked things up and was usually regarded as the responsible one on the team when it was just a bunch of us teens working a ride. We had a college student intern lead who was not good at leading or training new hires. We'll call him M. At my main ride, it required 3 people minimum to operate, 1 person in the control booth, 1 at the entrance gate, and 1 at the exit. However, we could have 4 or 5 if we were incredibly busy to help deal with the line. The people in the booth and at the entrance could not see the person at the exit directly, so we used radios. The control booth also had a camera on the exit gate. From day 1 on the job, we were taught hand signals in case the radio dies, or for quick communication. These signals were universal across the entire park. That summer, 3 freshly certified kids, we had to take tests to prove we paid attention to training, started the ride with someone locked inside the fence, aka not in a seat. Twice it was another employee, once it was a guest, which was a huge deal. The thing with those incidents was that those in the control booth didn't notice their mistake until the others screamed at them to hit the e-stop. Those new hires were either retrained or moved to a simpler ride. Well, one incredibly busy day, there were 5 of us running things, me, M, and 3 others. M had been called over to another ride, which normally wasn't an issue. About an hour later, someone was scheduled to go home, and M hadn't come back yet. I called the other ride and asked them to send him back. We could have run things with 3 of us, but it was super busy and we really needed a 4th. A few minutes later, someone, not our lead, was sent over to take over. Weird, but no big deal. Another hour or so went by, someone else needed to go home. I called again, asking for M. Also, all the radio's batteries were dead or dying. Things had slowed down, so I, being the spare fourth person, took the radios to the office to get fresh batteries. This took less than 10 minutes, and in that time, the guys had switched to hand signals as we were trained. When I came back, our lead had once again sent over someone else to take his spot. At this point, I realized that M was probably just shooting the crap in the nice air-conditioned booth at the other ride. Now, the guy that got sent over to us was normally at a roller coaster and hadn't been at this ride in over a month. So I gave him a quick review and he took controls. I turned around for maybe 30 seconds when I hear yelling. I turn around and the ride was stopped maybe 3 feet off the ground with our entrance guy locked in the fence. The guy at controls saw what he did and hit the e-stop, something that the other screw-ups that summer did not think to do. We had to call upper management, and wouldn't you know, M came running over. This time, the highest of the higher-ups came over as well. They pulled each of us aside and interrogated us, which was odd, then walked away and talked for like half an hour. They then fired the guy at the controls on the spot, and came up with BS reasons to get the rest of us removed from running rides. They absolutely were only doing that to make an example of us. I tried to rip into M for shirking his duties, but as an anxiety-ridden kid, it didn't hit very hard. I was mainly pissed off that they fired the poor guy who never should have been there in the first place. Remember, I took the already dead radios earlier? They tried to say I had removed communication devices from the ride area, which prevented them from letting controls know they were outside the gate. They were basically trying to pin the whole thing on me. Total bull, because this happened after I brought them back. I assume M threw me under the bus for being in charge while he wasn't there. Also, we had hand signals. I tried explaining that to them, but they didn't give a crap. I refused to sign the paperwork, which would be admitting fault, so this fight was stretched over multiple days. Plus, I was leaving for college in like 2 weeks and didn't want to spend my last days of summer cleaning bathrooms. They gave us a new rule. If a single radio was dying, we had to call a manager to fetch us a new battery, even if we had people to spare to go grab one instead. If a radio died, we had to close the ride. Managers roamed around the whole area and were responsible for so much, so if you called them and it wasn't urgent, it could take a long time for them to show up. The next day, my radio was dying. I called the manager, half an hour goes by. I call again. My radio died. I shut down the ride. The people in the over an hour line got pissed. I explained to people that we had to close because of the radios. Naturally, they got even more pissed because of how stupid that was. Manager shows up minutes later. I took the battery from him with a smile on my face, and he left without saying a word. After many complaints, management was magically fine with us using hand signals again. I never signed that paperwork. I left for college, and funnily enough, M also went to the same college. I ran into him once, he just kinda nodded at me. I gave him a dirty look, and I never saw him again. The next summer, I was rehired by the park as a lead, and actually did my darn job. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Zumbo Prime. It says, "Good on you for turning the crowd on the right people. What I want to know is why the FOP went back after they fired someone for hitting the e-stop correctly and tried to blame the entire debacle on him." Okay, so I'm thinking on this one, if you're required to use the radios because you can't see one of your workers, then you should have extra batteries there with you that are already charged. Why would they have a system in place where you have to leave the ride entirely to get new batteries? That doesn't make any sense at all. Alright, I think we'll end this one here. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow us on your preferred podcasting platform. If you're on Spotify, do us a favor and drop a 5-star review. It would really help us out. I thank each and every one of you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.